What's going on, people? So, just gonna do a real quick little action figure comparison review sort of deal, right? It's more so on the comparison side than the review side, because I mean, I've covered my thoughts. Well, actually, I haven't covered my thoughts on these, so I guess it will be a little bit of both worlds. But here's the thing, right? I've been buying action figures for a while now. It's just that I never really thought much about the Elite versus Basic thing, because honestly, until recently, I didn't really realize it was a thing. Like, I was just buying them casually. I'd be walking through Walmart, I see like Tyler Breeze, and oh, I like him, and I'd pick that up. I'm walking through another time, and say, oh, Seth Rollins, I like him, and I'd pick it up. I would notice that sometimes they came in different packages, sure, but I didn't really think anything about this whole Elite versus Basics thing. And then being a part of the whole Chick Foley group, and people will say, oh yeah, I don't really care for the basics, or I stick with the elites, or I buy both, blah, blah, blah. And so then I started to kind of get a more of an appreciation, I guess you could say, for the differences. And so now that I've picked up a good number of these, I figured why not talk about it a little bit. And since I happen to have this set here, it's the Street Profits, right? So you got the Street Profits and Bianca Belair. And then again, Street Profits and Bianca Belair. But again, Elite versus Basic, which to me seems like it'll be a little better of a move than if I was just to say, okay, well, I've got the Elites of the Street Profits, and I'm gonna go and do like the basics of the New Day or something, you know? Because there's gonna be similarities, but I think it's just better to use the same actual people. So that's what we're doing. So anyways, let's start with this guy here, right? So looking at this, right, one of the things you might notice first, if you're me at least, is that there's a good height difference between these two. So you got that going on. I mean, in the face, otherwise, they look like they're very, very similar. Not a whole lot of difference there. Even down to like the headband thing going on. So that's good. It probably saves some money on like the head sculpts and all that stuff. But then as you scroll down just a little bit, while the torsos do look very similar, or the upper bodies do look very similar as far as molds go, once you get into the arms, there's a lot more detail, of course. You know, you've got more articulation, especially above the bicep, because the Elites do have that side-to-side motion. And I can't say if there's more or less movement. There's the same amount of movement in the actual elbow area. They don't have those double joints like I know the AEW figures do. So that's a nice bonus over on the AEW side of things. But these here, it's just more comes down to like a lot of the detailing, at least in this particular figure. And one thing that you do see on some, and well, you see it more on these, I should say. There's no bending in the actual torso area, like if you was making like the sit-up position or whatever you want to call that. Just like that front to back in the torso, you don't have it. And then moving down, he does swivel here. This one, no. It's just one solid block, basically. So you got that, and then down past there, obviously, he's wearing shorts in this case, and in this case, but here, while it does look like it's one big solid thing, they do still bend, so you have that whole thing going on, which is good, right? It looks very strange because it really breaks up the shorts, and I don't like that look, but it's there, so you can't argue with it. And then with the legs, you know, from the calf down, they do have that side-to-side motion going on. And then the feet, they still have that same stuff that you would expect, where it's just not a huge range, but it's enough, you know? This one actually doesn't have as much, but it could just be a little stiff. And I'm not going to try to break it or anything, but it is usually the standard when it comes down to the feet. You might just have to deal with the shoes that he's wearing, which looks very much like a basic shoe. I would expect more from him, honestly. But otherwise, that's this particular figure. Very much the same. Obviously, the Elite has more detail and more mobility, and I feel like that's going to be the general theme of all these. But we're going to work our way through and double check, right? Because why guess when you can confirm it all right here? So we're going to break out his tag team partner, and in this particular case, things start to take a bit of a turn. So you can tell, like with the head sculpt alone on this guy, I don't know what went on with the basic, but it does not look very good, at least as far as accuracy. It looks fine as a figure, but the Elite looks so much better, and it has the crown, which is a nice touch, right? And these glasses do come off. Now, moving on past that, the way they did him as far as like the tattoos and all that stuff, They're a little easier to see on the Basic because of like the coloring that they use. On the Elite, they look more like they're just kind of like the Undertaker, where they look very faded and just like a big mess after years. You know what I mean? But on the Elite, I mean on the Basic, they're actually pretty clear. Also, one thing that's clear, more so on the Elite, the definition in the muscle tone. Looking at the front of the guy, you can see all that stuff. And then when you flip him around on the back, you've got a lot of detail going on back there as well. So overall, huge difference, huge difference. And of course, again, with like these upper torso back and forth sort of motion. So there's that. And then as with, oh, I guess this one doesn't have that. This one doesn't seem to bend at the waist like his partner here did, but it is what it is. This one does, but this one does. The Elite, the Basic does twist. Okay, there it is. It was just a little stiff. So they are both twisting, which makes me wonder if that one will as well. I have to go back to it. You know, I don't really mess with these things a whole lot once I stand them up. So anyways, they do both have the twisting at the torso, so that's good. I'll have to double check the other guy there. But then moving on down, you do have the legs, and so here you have a little bit more of a articulation because in the upper thigh area they do have that swivel. And then moving down to the legs here, it is a double joint, right? Yes, it is. It is a little double joint there going on. It's just this leg happens to be a little stiffer than the other. I could have gone through all this before the review, but I did not. And then looking at the Basic, same thing. There's just also very stiff, so not a big deal. But then when you get down to the actual feet, the Basic only has the left and right motion, whereas with the Elite, you do have the whole range of like lifting your toes, pointing your toes, that sort of thing. So one thing that is worth mentioning here, with the legs, I didn't mention it before, but you do have a lot of side-to-side motion, so that's cool. That's pretty much locked down on the Basics. But the thing is, with all these extra joints and stuff that you have to manipulate or whatever, when they're loose, kind of like you see his foot is a little bit loose here, it just kind of compromises this whole operation, you know what I mean? So it makes it a little bit harder to stand these guys up securely in whatever way you're trying to stand them up. It's good to have the option as far as those joints being there. But if they're messed up, then it kind of sucks. So that's something worth mentioning. And also with the arms, I didn't say it before because I didn't notice, but these do have the, so that cup does come out of his hand. So these do have the side to side in the upper bicep area, whereas the Basics have it down here right around the elbow. So that's something I didn't mention before either. So there you go. And I believe they did come with extra hands because that's generally a thing that happens with the Elites. And also as far as the size difference goes, again, the Basic is much taller than the Elite. Well, I won't say much taller. It's not like, Viscera versus like, I don't know, Pac, but there's a difference. There's a difference for sure. And I didn't notice this before, and because I had never really paid attention to it before, but I believe that on the forearm here, that's supposed to be Bianca Belair, because they talked about that in her little Chronicle video, which if you haven't seen it, definitely worth checking out. Speaking of, let's go ahead and move on to her. My figure, I don't know if this is everybody's, but my Basic, there happens to be a little extra movement, like an extra looseness down in this lower area, right, which I'm not really thrilled about, but whatever. See that? It's kind of wobbly. Anyways, let's just knock out the comparisons here. So in the face, well, first off, sizing wise, she seems to be about the same height. The Elite does have her by a slight edge. So anyways, moving on past that though, the face here, the face seems to be a lot more detailed on the Elite and looks a lot better. Well, I won't say a lot better, but it looks better in general, right? And in the back of the hair, it does have Bianca Belair EST on the Elite, so that's a nice little touch. And then the hair is very thin, whereas the Basic is a little bit thicker. So I don't really have a preference for either one. I can't say one is better than the other as far as that goes, but the detailing obviously in the Elite definitely gets the thumbs up for me. So then anyways, as far as the torso goes, they're both looking very much the same, just in different clothing. And they both seem to have that swivel thing from left to right, so that's good. And the arms are very much the same as well. There's not a whole lot of difference here. In this particular case though, there seems to be a bit more muscle tone in the Basic than the Elite. So that's going to be a toss-up apparently per figure. But spinning this thing around here, they put a little bit more detail into the backside where the tattoos are. So on the Elite, it definitely just looks a lot better. So that's cool. And it's also worth noting that the upper torso, you know, you do have that motion. But one of the things that I do like is that on the Elite, the clothing she's wearing is actually like clothing, you know. Whereas on the Elite, excuse me, on the Basic, it's more just the bottom part is textured, where like the lower chain type area is. After that, it's all just painted on, right? So this, it has more texture going on in the shirt overall, slightly, but still there. And then the rest of it, she just looks she looks a little thinner on the Elite. So in that way, I would say that the Basic is a little more accurate because she's not to make it sound bad, but she's like a bigger woman, you know what I mean? Because she's like strong, right? Strongest, as I heard. But anyways, so you got that going on. So slight difference in size there if you catch it from the side. But then moving on down, you do have the same articulation style that you have on the other ones. Double jointed knees over here on the Elite. Not on the Basic, they just have that single one. And then with the legs on the Basic, left and right, with the feet I should say, you do have that as well over here on the Elite. But you have that you have what you would expect from the Elite in the feet, where they do move up and down, and a slight adjustment also in the toe area as well on this particular one, which was not on either of the other Elites. So you have this one, you can kind of see it there. This kind of goes up and down a little bit, more so down than up. It's kind of weird, looks a little unnatural when you move it around. But anyways, overall though, obviously the Elites, there's a lot more going on into them, right? They come with extra stuff, they look better, they have more articulation. But some of the Basics aren't bad, right? Just like, it's kind of is a toss-up depending on each figure, really. So I wouldn't say to not buy Basics, but just remember, like, if you're paying $9.99 for something, you're probably going to get a $9.99 experience, right? I think we could all agree to that. So there's that for you. I don't know what all else there really is to say, so I'm gonna just wrap this review up. I'll probably, be picking up other figures as time goes on and bringing those unboxings as well. They don't get a whole lot of views, but they're fun to talk about, So anyways, there's that. Have a nice rest of your day or rest of your night, whatever it is, wherever you are. I'm done here, so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this whole night up now, because this was the second review I needed to do after Eric and Ivar, so we're good. I'll take the pictures in the morning and knock out the video in the afternoon or evening, whatever. We'll see. Later, people.